Welcome to the newest part of my hot rod tutorial. This week we're going to complete the high poly, and you just saw the engine we finished last week. And in this video we're going to tackle the body of the car and also the interior. So as you can see here, the interior, it's a little bit organic in shape since it's this padded leather seats and sides of the car. But we're going to start on the exterior first, and you can see me pulling some of these verts out since I've decided that the doors on the side, after studying reference closely, I noticed that it's just a shape on the outside. They don't actually open. People just jump over the edge to get into the car since they're so low anyway. So that's the reason that I won't be modeling the doors so that they can open. So renaming this part, naming it HP body for high poly and placing it on a new layer. It's really important to keep these layers structured. Also, I'm organizing these layers a bit, thinking about how I will texture them. They're sort of on a high and low poly layer per texture. Nothing to worry about yet though. So anyway, I'm doing an inset here to create some sort of interesting shape using bevel and extrude to create this shape. There we go. There's a little bit of a problem at the center. I need to align those to the 0 axis again. There we go, that looks correct. And then do another inset here and place this one back at the 0 axis again. There we go. I've placed a symmetry on top of this, and I'm copying the high poly from the engine to paste it on the body so that I have a duplicated shape. And immediately you can see there's a very nasty bump at the side there. Something that really catches my eye. I really want to avoid this, so I'm gonna have to do some tweaking there. This one needs to be moved more inside, like that. I need to get the shape a lot smoother. These also need to be moved outside. Especially in the high poly, you want to make sure there's no bumps. In the low poly, it's pretty much unavoidable unless you use a lot of polygons, especially due to the shading. But in high poly, definitely want to avoid. A little bug there we need to fix. That's looking about right. Bit of a problem at the bottom there. I need to move these out a little bit more to get things rounded nicely. Yep. And so now I want to first fix up these ridges at the end, but I want to create like a an inside for the car, so the body is actually two-sided for the largest part. There we go. It's good to start out with, like that. And to give the edge some thickness, and since this is a difficult operation to do with one single move, I'm gonna have to manually tweak every point here. I can move these as a single group of edges, like that. So I'm trying to give some thickness to the edge of this car. And yeah, that looks about right. The front looks a bit too sharp there. I might want to change it around a little bit. Selecting all of these at once and doing another extrusion slightly upwards, slightly inwards, and then way down. This might seem like a weird thing to do, but I'm actually creating the base geometry for the seats here. Since when you use an extrude on edges, you don't have all that much control in which direction they go. I needed to do 2 of them. And I also want the leather of the seats to bulge out a little bit from the edges of the body. Since it's actually a separate material also, there I'm doing a grow, and I'm immediately detaching that as an element, since as I was just about to say, these two things are physically separate. The body might be fiberglass, or it might be aluminium, and the seats are obviously leather, so it's easier not to model them connected together. So I'm adding another edge all the way around here. Why am I doing that? So that I can model some roundness into that. Then I'm adding this edge to add the sort of leather band running around it, the seat edge. Yeah, there we go. And I'm actually going to do a bevel on that to get some more thickness in it. Oh, I forgot to deselect that edge. There we go. And that's looking good. Need to put this one back on the 0 axis. Right. I'm gonna look at, move this up a little bit so I keep the round shape in there. These edges need to be moved forward more, these need to be moved up. And there we go, that's the base of our inside. It needs some finishing off, and obviously it needs yeah, I'm noticing that the side profile is a little different, so I'm trying to get that same feeling here. Need to space my edges to follow the flow better. There's a bit of a problem here. Apparently I've done some sort of extrude, which I didn't really have to. Yep, it needs to be like that. These edges were spaced wrongly. It's a bit of a tricky shape to create, and you can see I'm having a little bit of a mess here that I need to clean up now. Some extra polygons. You always need to watch out for that sort of stuff. Sometimes you need to fix some really hairy situations, pulling verts out of each other. Yep, that's looking better also. Not so smooth. A bit more of a sharper end. There's a sharp end at the front of the car because the dashboard will be there, and the leather sort of stops there. Yeah, I'm doing a grow on this part. Why am I doing that? Because I want to move it forward more. I want to make the back cushion a lot fatter, since looks like the back end of the car was just too thin. And this also needs to be moved a little bit. Yeah, that's looking better now that we have the thickness at the end there. You can see this is just a lot of manual tweaking of parts. I'm using soft selection since it's a more organic shape, and to worry a bit less about bumps. Turbo Smooth will smooth things out. It can look a little bit irregular, I don't mind that much. So what I'm doing here is creating the bench on which driver and passenger will sit. Move that a little bit. Of course I'm going to use symmetry on that, so I can just delete one half. Yeah, these parts will be also the fatter pillows, so I'm also performing an bevel on them. Alright, I'm just using scale instead of bevel, it's easier. And then I'm using a connect there to make sure it doesn't get rounded too much on one end. And I'm dividing it a few times because obviously there's these what I call them, there's a pattern in these the cushions, all these parallel stitched parts, and I also want to create those. I select all these faces separately and do a bevel by polygon. There we go. Now I'm just thinking that it's better to chamfer them first, since they'll be smoothed into each other if I don't do that. So I'm doing a slight chamfer in between and then selecting all these parts again. There we go. Perform the bevel on it. Then perform an extra connect here so they are not too round on one end. Subdivide them again. And that looks about okay, just a little bit too straight. And also that one end looks a bit too fake. Yeah, that's better. Okay. People might argue this sort of stuff you could do in ZBrush, but I tend to avoid that if it's not necessary. Going to another application just slows down the entire process. If you can do it in 3D Studio Max, I prefer to do so. So we're getting rid of a bit of that mechanical feel by using an FFD here. To you can morph a really complex shape with a more general box there. And it just makes things easier to work with. I'm going to use FFD a few times for this part. So I'm attaching that one. There we go. That bench looks about right. And so what I'm doing now is I'm selecting a single one of those stitched parts of the cushion. I've got one right now. Align the pivot to the center, move it to the back. What I will be doing now is instancing it a lot next to each other, and the reason for that is then I can create one single long one with these uniform parts, just welding them together. There we go, another welded. Might have to duplicate it again, not sure. I'm just having a check if the welds are working. There we go. I need to increase the threshold a little bit more before it worked. Okay, so we've got this part. I'm gonna clone it again and use snapping again to align them together perfectly. Click weld one more time, and there we go. We have our big stretched out cushion pattern. What we're gonna do now is morph and change this one into fitting around the side and the back of our interior. And that might seem like a crazy thing to do with a mesh that has so many vertices, such a dense mesh, but it's actually not a problem. First of all, I'm going to start off with a path deform, and this path deform is being a bit annoying. There we go. No, actually I created this path deform by selecting the edges of the seats, creating a spline from the selection. So you actually create a spline that follows the exact shape of the mesh you want to follow, and then I use a path deform on my mesh here. So it's a little bit tricky to get this right. I was also using a world space modifier, and that didn't really work out for me. So I'm just gonna try and do it with an FFD straight away. Sometimes it's just easier to do it manually, since I was gonna have to tweak so much on that path deform modifier, since it wasn't giving me straight away satisfactory results. So I'm just going to use an FFD on it straight away. So let's see. Alright, we're going to align this one correctly. And I want to reduce my FFD in points a lot. In every dimension except in the longest part, so that I have an easier time aligning this one. And now you see it's just like modeling a low poly box. I'm using just rotate and move to get all the general points into place. You see, it's still gonna be some work to get this right, but the method is correct, so we should be able to do this. You also need to watch out, the FFD stretches and compresses some parts of a mesh it's transforming, so you need to compensate for that. So just generally move these into place. Yeah, it's tricky since I'm actually going along a bend. Using rotate as well as move for this, but there's just not really another way. And in the end you'll get the best results from this, since you really manually have control over it. Now once I've rotated it, there we go, we can start working with that. Actually, it's a really complex thing this is doing. It's twisting, it's bending, it's tapering. So really the best thing is just to create this manually. There we go. That looks almost right. Trying to get them the edges to align with the rest of my mesh. There's a bit of stretching over here. I need to compensate for that. There you go. That's a lot better. So that the size of those stitched parts look even. Stretch these to the bottom. And there we go. Gonna move these all the way down. It's just gonna look cleaner. Space everything a little bit more even. Okay, so yeah, I don't think that looks half bad. And if I collapse this now, I can delete the extra parts I had over there. Don't select too much. There we go, and I can just delete those by using grow and a few selections. There we go. I created too many segments on purpose just because I didn't know how long it was going to end up. Alright. So I'm doing an extrude on the back there, and I deleted the flat part because, well, the flat part wasn't needed anymore. It was just extra, and it was a guideline for me to see where I had to place the denser mesh. Go just spacing these parts, these verts a bit more since they look a bit sloppy. There we go, subdivide. That looks good. There's only one problem there in the center. it's welding them together. And yeah, now I see here that I've been a little bit sloppy, and this one is obviously sitting forward a little bit too much. So I'm just gonna make my life a little bit easier and delete all those extra subdividing parts, since I really don't need them. You barely noticed that I deleted them. There we go. And that looks better. Almost. Just tweak these a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, and it wasn't perfectly aligned to the center. And I'm actually missing some edges there. To create that sharp line in between. There we go. That looks right. Okay, there's a bit of a seam between the back seat and the back of the car. I'm gonna have to fix that up and close it. It won't be too hard. Yeah, I'm just having a look at the two high pulley parts together. One thing I can't forget is I need to create a transmission tunnel in the body for the transmission to sit in. Because obviously you want to have a gear stick, I forgot the exact word for it, to control the gears, and that has to rise up out of the transmission tunnel. So I need to create some space for that. So we're just modeling that here. I'm going to do that straight away in the high pulley. It doesn't really matter. Yep, just aligning these parts. This isn't anything too difficult. Just using the snap tool here also. Also, if you can't find these exact settings, you can right-click you can click for the snap settings, and over there I turn on use axis constraints in the second tab, and I'm only snapping by vertex, which I think is the most useful. There we go, that's been closed up nicely. This part will only be seen from the underside of the car. I'll create a cover on the top. So there we go, I don't think that looks too bad. It's a fiberglass part anyway, so it can be a little bit more round. I need to stretch it a little bit more because there will probably be more parts sitting in there. Transmission and the drive parts aren't completely finished. Alright. Yeah, moving that back a little bit to close that gap. So now we have a big black gaping hole in there. We need to close that up a little bit more. And I think I'm going to start by creating the dashboard for the car. Since it's a wooden or mechanical shape, and I just want to do that straight away. Yeah, you can see I tried to paste the turbo smooth on it, but apparently it's something strange in 3D Studio Max. It doesn't actually remember which modifier you pasted. It remembers its relative position in the stack. So if you copy the turbo smooth as the second modifier, but then add another one, in my case this FFD, and paste it again, it pastes the FFD instead of the modifier, instead of the turbo smooth. So kind of stupid, but hey, nothing we can do about that. Okay, Okay, so this shape I'm just mainly going by that reference. I think that looks okay. I like the this idea of an inset shape. So I'm just gonna extrude these inward. Delete the pulleys at the center. There we go. Just so that we have a sharp shape over there. That should look about right. I'll always remember to delete the parts at the center of your symmetry axis so you don't end up with problems. I'm using select by angle, so I can just select these parts in one click. Makes things a lot easier. As you can see, a while back it was just protruding into the body there. I want to avoid that. Also, I'm leaving the back on there because you might see it. I'm not sure about that. It doesn't hurt to leave it open in the high poly. Okay, the dash looks okay. What I'm doing now is blindly creating the shapes for the ridge that suggests the door shape on the side of the car, and I'm moving all these points so they sit exactly on the surface. Then I turn them into Beziers, and these Beziers I will adjust so that these lines sit exactly on the surface. Go moving them a little bit more inside. Turn it into a Bezier corner so I have a little bit more control over the bulge. And then once I've adjusted that, I'm just going to do a fillet on them so that they become rounded. And they should remain on the surface. It might need a little bit more adjusting. Yeah, I need to adjust this one as well as a Bezier. There, that looks better. Alright, so this shape doesn't look half bad. It needs to be a little bit thicker, I think. Change it to red also. And yeah, it might seem a little fat on the high poly here, but it needs to be obvious on the normal map, since obviously that's not something I'm going to model on the low poly. So I'll just leave it like that. Okay. So I just turned off the symmetry and the turbo smooth for my body part, since I'm going to model the remaining parts of the interior, which is the floor and the front side. I didn't align here, but it's actually rotated my part a little bit too much, so what I'm doing is just rotating it 90 degrees to get it aligned properly again. Adding some subdivisions so that I have enough control over it. Yeah, now I've done a connect there. Why? Because obviously I need to create some room for the transmission tunnel. I'm doing an extrude so I have space for the transmission tunnel. Quickly suggesting that shape. Delete whatever parts are not needed, such as that one. Now obviously use a target weld to close that up. This sort of patch up work isn't really difficult to do, especially when you can just have meshes intersecting. I don't really think it's a hard thing to do then. There we go. Just some easy extruding and moving. All you need to really watch out for is that stuff doesn't intersect in each other. Closing that up as one part. Obviously I need to remember this is a high poly part, so it needs enough segments. Okay, I think we're almost ready to have a look at how this looks with a turbo smooth on it. So we're gonna attach it, turn it on. There we go. That doesn't look bad. Obviously there's a little bit of a problem there where the dash meets the side meets this extra part. That's pretty much the trickiest part of this car, where lots of small things are intersecting. I've done interiors before, and to be honest I don't really like doing them because it's so much small strange shapes coming together. A lot of respect for the artists that do just car interiors. Really crazy thing to do. This one's quite simple, and still there's annoying parts in it. I also need to move these out a little bit. That looks better. Oh, there we go. It might seem a bit under detailed on the inside there, but really you're barely going to see that since it's always going to be dark or shaded, so don't worry about that. Okay, I think this one's starting to look like it's almost finished. Might need a little tweak here and there, but we'll get there another time. So let's just unhide everything and hiding the old body. Let's see our two high poly parts so far together. I think that looks pretty nice already. Okay, so again we're saving it and on to the next part.